Hello, this is Addison from the Agency of Narrative Intrigue and Mystery. This is another quick start video for Eureka. For anyone who is intimidated by the rulebook, this is going to be about firearms and how they work differently from like melee weapons or like punching with fists and stuff. So I've already covered the general dangerous situation stuff like turn order and speed in one video and melee fighting in another video. This video is about the rules for when characters in Eureka use guns. Starting with the firearms skill. The firearms skill represents a character's knowledge and experience with firearms. You can probably guess it'll come up a lot in the firearms rules and mechanics. Like with all the main skills, we have some example descriptors who might have that level of training or experience. At the lower end, they might have never handled a gun before, and at the higher end, they have, more experience and formal training. At +3 here, we have the kind of spec ops that only really exists in movies. We should probably edit that to make it a little more clear. That'll probably almost definitely be edited a bit in future versions of the rulebook. This version of the rulebook is the July 11th version, July 11th, 2025. We're probably, at the time of recording this, we're probably about 10 to 15 days from releasing another version on Patreon with updates and stuff and improvements that we've been working on since July 11th, and probably maybe 30 days from releasing another version on itch.io, which we do every few months. But I don't think that there will be much difference between what I'm showing off here and what you'll need to know to play the most updated version of Eureka in the future. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing these videos if I didn't think these rules were pretty stable. So I went over it in a lot more detail in the How to Hurt People video, but basic attacks where the only point is to hurt the target in Eureka are just like any other roll, 2d6 plus a skill, and whatever other relevant modifiers there are. There are a few differences with firearms, and that's one of the things you'll learn in this video. If the situation becomes dangerous, then that starts turn order, with the person either attacking or otherwise making the first move getting the first turn. If they are attacking, then the person that they're attacking gets the second turn. And then it goes to regular epicenter initiative after that, which I explained in the dangerous situations video. If the target of a attack that starts a situation like this knows that it is coming, then they can try to basically steal first turn by trying to make a full success on a reflexes roll. But in the case of a firearm being aimed at them, if they attempt this, they cannot duck. That's duck with a capital D. It's something I'll talk about probably way at the end of this video. If you remember from like the life and death video or any of the other videos where I mentioned it, characters have two types of HP in Eureka, penetrative HP and superficial HP, and 5 of each. Superficial is generally for the kind of thing that heals easily, and penetrative is generally for the kind of thing that requires actual, like, trained medical attention. This is covered in more detail in the other videos, and of course covered in the most detail in the rulebook. But when a character gets to 1 penetrative HP, they have to make an injury roll using their athletic skill. And if they don't get a full success, there's all kinds of really bad effects that can put them down and even permanently cripple them. I'm not covering that here, but the same goes for superficial damage. Go read the rulebook or watch one of the other videos for that. Also, when they get to 0 penetrative HP, they just die immediately. I'm focusing pretty much entirely on penetrative HP here because almost anything to do with firearms in Eureka will deal with penetrative damage and not deal with superficial damage. A single bullet deals 4 penetrative damage, which is enough to cause an injury roll immediately. But the biggest difference is that a full success is required to hit. On a partial success, instead of dealing half damage like a melee weapon would, it causes a woo roll. That is capital WOO, which is something I'll talk about again later. Before that, I have to talk about another difference between firearms attacks and attacks with melee weapons. So when I said a single bullet deals 4 penetrative damage, I didn't say a single firearm attack, I said a single bullet. A firearm attack allows a character to fire as many shots as they want as a single action, depending on the gun's rate of fire. Rate of fire, capital R, capital F, or ROF, is a stat of a gun that tells you how many shots it can shoot in a single action. I'll also cover it more later. When a character fires multiple bullets as a single action, each bullet is rolled for separately. The character can aim for as many targets as they want, and the shots are split as evenly as possible between all selected targets. If a Eureka point for focus is spent on a firearm attack that has multiple shots, then instead of adding an extra d6 to each shot, it just adds a +2 contextual bonus per Eureka point spent. If 4 or more shots are being shot as a single attack, instead of using 2d6, you use 1d12 for each shot. But the same numbers apply for full success, partial success, and failure. A 6 or below is a failure, a 7, 8, or 9 is a partial success, and a 10 or above is a full success, compared to a 2d6, which is going to be very predictable, whereas a d12 is swingier. It also means that it's easier to pick up a bunch of them and roll them all at once with just a big handful of dice when you've got to make 4 or more rolls for a single action. More difficult shots apply cumulative penalties as shown here on screen. In addition to those penalties, there's also penalties based on the number of bullets being fired as a single action, as seen here. But there are also some factors that can increase the number of bullets a character can fire as a single action before they start to get those penalties for firing too many bullets at once, which you can see on screen a little bit below that. So for example, if the gun has a stock, instead of getting the -1 penalty at more than 1 bullet, they can fire up to 3 bullets before they get the -1 penalty. Also, for every -5 cumulative modifier a shooting action has, one of the full successes from that big handful of dice gets downgraded to a partial success. This is to make it so that shots with extreme penalties are not always guaranteed to hit just by volume, even though generally volume of shots dramatically increases chance to hit, just like in real life. We just had to do this rule because, unlike in real life, it's governed by dice and math. We had to throw this in here to make it so that it wasn't statistically impossible to miss after a certain point. Alright, now we are to woo rolls again. Woo rolls, spelled capital W-O-O, named after John Woo, director of some movies like Hard Boiled, which is my go-to example for explaining it. This is one of the coolest parts of Firearms and Eureka. I'm very proud of it. So high-powered projectiles like bullets do not just disappear in Eureka if they miss. They have to hit something. And when they don't hit their intended target in Eureka, they instead hit something else and cause some kind of change in the situation or environment. A shootout in Eureka is almost always going to be extremely dangerous and chaotic, even compared to like a knife fight, and cause a lot of collateral damage. To maybe visualize this a bit, I might be able to grab a clip or two from Hard Boiled to play on the screen right now. So if any shot with a firearm is not a full success, you make a woo roll. A woo roll is 1d6. If that 1d6 is a 3 or higher, it's a positive woo roll, which means the shot hits something besides the intended target that has some effect on the environment that benefits the shooter somehow. The example we have here is accidentally hitting a fire extinguisher behind the target that explodes and covers them in fire extinguisher foam, which would cause a penalty to their next shot. If the woo roll ends up a 2 or lower, that is a negative woo roll, and the shot hits something that does not benefit the shooter, like hitting the hostage instead of hitting the hostage taker, or hitting a gas line and starting a big fire in the building. That second example is important because just because it's bad for the shooter does not mean it's good for anyone else. Also, I guess it wouldn't be good for the hostage taker if the hostage was shot either. If the firearm shot was a partial success, you just roll the 1d6 woo roll normally, so it's more likely to be positive, but it's still possible for it to be negative. If the firearm shot was a failure, you subtract 2 from the woo roll, so it's got a 2/3 chance to be negative and a 1/3 chance to be positive. This all means that even a very skilled shooter needs to be very careful about shooting a gun in any kind of environment or situation. You know, don't point a gun at anything that you're not planning to destroy. One of the rules of gun safety. If there were multiple shots fired as part of a single action, you still only make a single woo roll, based on whether the majority of missed shots were partial successes or failures. So if somebody fired 4 shots, one of them was a full success, 2 of them were partial success, and the last one was a failure, then you would make the normal 1d6 woo roll. If somebody fired 4 shots and one of them was a full success, 2 of them were failures, and one of them was a partial success, then you would make the woo roll with a -2. Woo rolls affect obvious elements of the environment first, to the point that anyone should be able to guess what a positive or negative woo roll effect would do in any given situation, just based on having the room or the situation described to them. If there isn't anything like that anyone can think of in the environment where this is happening, then we also have some roll tables here that you can roll on for a random effect that is not specifically tied to any location or environment. All this stuff I just told you should make it clear how dangerous guns are in Eureka and how they work differently from how most RPGs tend to do them. A shot has a relatively low chance to hit, which represents shots taken under duress against targets that are trying not to be shot. But if it does hit, it can end a fight immediately. If it doesn't hit, then it can destroy something else or someone else in the environment, which means that somebody without proper training or someone with proper training who's just being reckless can be a danger to themselves and others with a firearm in Eureka. Since it only takes 1 shot to take someone down, firing more shots, even if it means less accuracy for each individual shot, does significantly increase the chances to defeat an enemy, because only 1 out of X number of shots needs to hit. But firing just a ton of shots also means greater risk, because it starts to accrue penalties, and it means that after a certain point, it is going to be way more likely that the majority of those missed shots, and there will be almost certainly be missed shots, will be failures. The only time that you don't make a woo roll is when 100% of the shots fired in an action were full success hits. To improve chance to hit, character can stop and take an action to aim at a single target, which would give them a +2 contextual bonus to all their shots against that target on the next turn that they take. But this only works if they're aiming for a single target, and they don't move, and nothing bumps or moves or pushes or interrupts them in some way. Of course, if it's an extremely easy shot, like literally shooting the broadside of a barn while they're not in danger or trying to act fast or otherwise under duress, that probably just would not require a dice roll to hit it in the first place. For the next part of the video, I'm going to talk about some other important rules that are to do with firearms, like reloading and stuff like that. But I'm going to start with just quickly showing off the different categories of guns in Eureka and some of the really nice artwork we had done put here in the rulebook. So Eureka does not have all the world's guns listed out with unique individual stats for each model of gun. There isn't enough accurately quantifiable variation in what like 2 different semi-automatic handguns can do to the human body for Eureka's purposes to be worth listing. A Beretta 92, a Glock 17, and a Colt 1911. Yes, there are notable differences in the way these guns handle, their weight, their ammunition capacity, their amount of recoil, different sight options and accessory options and stuff like that. But as well as what kind of ammunition they fire, which can make a difference sometimes in real life, especially at like very long range. But mostly for Eureka's purposes, both like a 45 caliber bullet and a 9mm bullet, those both put holes in people and make them die pretty much close enough to the same amount of holes and dying to not be worth making two different items for a Beretta 92 and a Colt 1911. The main things that Eureka cares about when it comes to guns is what kind of action it has. That's action as in the way that a gun cycles bullets into the chamber after it's emptied the chamber by firing a bullet. I don't mean capital A action as in a dangerous situation action like an attack. How it loads, like if it has internal magazines or external magazines, and if it shoots pistol caliber bullets, like basically low caliber bullets, rifle caliber bullets like high caliber bullets, or shotgun shot like a bunch of pellets all in a bunch. One of the main variances you'll find between two guns within the same category, like two semi-automatic handguns, for the purposes of Eureka, is their ammunition capacity. We have a default capacity listed for each different category for the players who aren't as familiar with guns as we are, but like magazine sizes available realistically are going to depend a lot on the specific model of gun and also the gun control laws in your state and stuff like that. I don't know if it says this outright in the book or not, but I also personally recommend that if you're going to give your investigator a gun, or if you're a narrator and you're giving guns to any NPCs, that you list it as a specific model of gun and not just say like semi-automatic pistol in the inventory. This is especially if you are running a Eureka adventure where a firearm is like used to murder somebody and it's like the murder weapon for the investigation, for the mystery. You will absolutely want to list a specific kind of gun, because like say like Colt 1911 and then in parentheses say semi-automatic pistol or vice versa. The specific quirks of a certain model of gun are something that can make a big difference in like evidence for an investigation, or the character's preferred model of gun can also just say a lot about them, you know, narratively or literarily, whatever you want to call it, characterization. And like I said, different models of gun, even within the same category, will quite often have different regular magazine sizes, different attachments available, and I don't know, you can learn a lot by just checking the Wikipedia page for the particular model if you're not really familiar with guns yourself. So I mentioned armor in the last video and how it always cuts damage from attacks by 50%. Go to the hurting people video or just read it in the rulebook if you want more detail, but what's important is that guns, even small caliber guns, will just blow straight through almost any armor in the game. Most things that count as quote-unquote armor in Eureka, like a leather jacket or a motorcycle helmet, will not protect against guns at all. There is, however, bulletproof armor like military helmets, Kevlar vests, and like plate carriers that will reduce damage from firearms by 50%. But military helmets do not protect against high caliber bullets or shotgun shot, and Kevlar vests will not protect against high caliber bullets. Only a plate carrier will protect against all of those things. I already went over how a firearm attack only hits on a full success and how multiple shots can be made as a part of a single action. But in chapter 3, where it talks about weapons, there's a few more important features of guns compared to like the average melee weapon. Guns have what the game calls an effective range. They can still be shot at things that are closer or farther away than their effective range, but there will be penalties or bonuses depending on how near or far the target is. When shooting at something beyond the gun's effective range, there's a -1 penalty to the shot for each multiple of the effective range beyond the first. As you can see here, if the effective range is 50 yards, then from 51 to 100 yards, it's a -1. From 101 to 150 yards, it's a -2, and so on. If shooting at a target that is within 1/5 of the effective range, there's a +2 contextual bonus to the shot. Handguns keep this +2 bonus when the target is right up in the shooter's face, but long guns like a rifle loses the +2 bonus if the target is right up in the shooter's face, and they instead get a -2 penalty. Guns in Eureka are considered to have either external or internal magazines. If a gun has an external magazine, like most modern guns do, you track how many magazines the character has, as well as how many bullets are in each magazine. Eureka does not do ammo pools like in video games. To make it easier, there's a place on the character sheet specifically for it so that you can easily track that, and that'll be showing on screen right now. If a character has to reload during a dangerous situation, there's a role for that because it's not a very easy thing to do quickly while in danger. External magazines and internal magazines have different roles. So in case anyone is not familiar with this, an external magazine is like a magazine that you can pop out of the gun. You've almost certainly seen this in movies and stuff, even if you're not familiar with firearms at all. An internal magazine is not like that. If you picture like a cowboy western revolver, yes, the magazine does open up, but that cylinder that the bullets are put in, that is the internal magazine. It's like part of the gun, it's inside the gun, and you load bullets directly into that. So for reloading a gun that uses external magazines, it's a regular 2d6 firearms roll. On a full success, it takes 1 movement. On a partial success, it takes 1 action. And on a failure, it takes 2 actions. For an internal magazine instead, like a revolver, where 1 bullet is loaded at a time, it always takes 1 action. But the number of bullets that can be loaded in that 1 action is variable. You roll 1d6 plus the character's firearms bonus, and those added together are the number of bullets that they can load within a single action into an internal magazine. Even if the firearms bonus is negative and the end result is negative, the minimum number of bullets that they can load as a single action is 1 bullet. They can't load 0 or negative bullets. Eureka is not often granular with specific firing settings on guns. If a character is firing a certain number of bullets with a gun that has firing settings, it is assumed that they switch the gun to the appropriate fire setting to fire that number of bullets as a single action. Rate of fire, capital R, capital F, abbreviated to ROF, determines how many bullets can be shot as a single action with a particular gun. Guns can be fired at their listed rate of fire, no higher and no lower. If the rate of fire is exactly 3, then when shooting this gun, the character must always fire 3 shots per action. If the rate of fire is 1-15 or 1 to 15, then the shooter can fire anywhere between 1 to 15 bullets as a single action. Also, remember that firing multiple bullets at once adds more penalties, like I talked about near the beginning, and also when firing more than 3 bullets, the 2d6 is always switched to d12. When it makes sense, a character with a +2 skill rating in firearms can increase the rate of fire of any semi-automatic, single action, or repeating gun by +1. Also, just for clarity, I did say single action there. I'm not referring, in that last sentence, I'm not referring to a capital A action, like in a dangerous situation in the rulebook. For anyone not super familiar with guns, single action and double action, it's like, bolt action and pump action. These are, single action in that context is a type of gun. I mentioned before that Eureka makes a distinction between pistol caliber and rifle caliber bullets. And that's where the stopping power, capital S, capital P, rule comes in. So bigger, faster bullets cause more severe wounds, and a significantly faster bullet causes a more severe wound than even a slower bullet the same size would. Pistol caliber bullets are not typically extremely fast, nor obviously extremely big. And they are not considered to have quote-unquote stopping power. with a capital S and P in Eureka. While rifle caliber bullets are considered to have capital S, capital P stopping power, which is the keyword that we use to determine if it's a big bullet or a little bullet, really. There is some nuance to this, but I'm not going to get into it. You can read it in the rulebook. If a gun has stopping power, then any injury roll that it causes with its damage will be 1 degree of success worse than the actual result. So for example, a full success on the injury roll would count as a partial success, and a partial success would count as a failure. Shotguns work differently from conventional bullet guns in Eureka. They have more granular effective range than regular guns, and this also affects their stopping power. The standard shotgun effective range is 45 yards, but it's also broken down into different incremental ranges. Within 0 to 4 yards, they have regular stopping power, the same as a rifle bullet. Within 5 to 10 yards, they have double stopping power, more than a rifle bullet, which in this case means that if a character is forced to make an injury roll by a shotgun shot at that range, then they basically automatically fail. A full success and a partial success both count as a failure. At 11 to 20 yards, they have regular rifle bullet type stopping power again. At 21 to 45 yards, they don't have any stopping power. They have the same lack of stopping power as a pistol bullet for Eureka's purposes. And past 45 yards, they do even less damage than a pistol bullet. They deal 2 penetrative damage instead of 4 penetrative damage. All other effective range penalties apply as normal for shotguns. Now we are back down to the different categories of firearm. There's some abbreviations here that you should know. Rate of fire is ROF. Magazine is MAG, M-A-G. This covers whether it's internal or external, and it lists the default capacity like we listed for people who wouldn't intuitively know the capacity of a gun. Range is the effective range. Special properties, SP, and it'll include stuff like what kind of stopping power it has. This art was done by C, one of our several artists that we pay to do art for us. That is pronounced C, but it is spelled QSY, and these guns depicted here are just examples of a type of gun that would fit into each category that Eureka sorts guns into. There are also attachments and accessories, and what they do is listed here below the different gun categories. We mostly trust you to be able to figure out what models of gun can reasonably benefit from what attachments and accessories, because trying to write all that out and account for every little thing would just be beyond the scope of the rulebook. We trust you to be able to figure that by yourself. Like, for instance, how a revolver speed loader would let a character reload a revolver like a gun that uses external magazines, but you wouldn't be able to use that with a semi-automatic standard handgun that uses external magazines already. There is also cover to account for. Firearm shots in Eureka take cover into account. This is very simple. Characters do not have to specifically quote-unquote take cover. There just has to be something between the shooter and the target that reasonably obscures the target from the shooter, and that would count as cover. There's 2 types of cover in Eureka: soft cover and hard cover. Their benefits can stack with each other, but a character can only really benefit from one instance of each one at a time. So there can't be 2 instances of hard cover at a time. If there is, then it still only just counts as one. Soft cover is any kind of cover which most bullets will easily penetrate, but still at least partially obscures or conceals the target. Stuff like most interior walls of buildings, most trees, most cars, bushes, etc. The target being behind soft cover gives the shooter a -1 penalty to their shots. Hard cover is any kind of cover which bullets cannot easily penetrate, and which at least partially obscures the target. Examples include like a thick brick wall, stone, concrete, sandbags, earthen trenches like they used in World War I, solid steel barricades, bulletproof glass, that kind of stuff. And on screen right now are some illustrations to provide some visual examples of hard cover and soft cover. This might also be the only place in the rulebook where, outside of like editor's notes, we say the word snoops about the little guys that are called snoops. The last big thing about cover is that, so cover does not have to be like a chest-high wall. Like I said, it just is anything that obscures the target from the shooter. Like, for example, as you can see in the illustration, being on top of a building can provide cover from shooters that are on the ground and below that level. Characters may not always be standing up. They may be on the ground, like prone or supine. This makes their movements only cover half the distance they normally would, and it can affect their melee attacks and melee attacks against them, and you can find that in the rulebook and on screen right now, but I'm going to be talking about it in the context of gunshots right now for this video. If the target is on the ground and more than 20 yards away from the shooter, then there's a -2 penalty to the shot. If the target is on the ground and behind cover, then that -2 applies regardless of distance, and you also still count the cover. So a -2 from cover and a -2 from being on the ground would result in a total of -4. The only problem with this for the person on the ground and behind cover is that in most cases, at least, they can't see over or around the cover to shoot back if they're on the ground behind it. If they try to shoot back blindly, then their shot will take a -4 penalty. If a character is on the ground and they want to not be on the ground during a dangerous situation, then they have to make a reflexes roll to get up quickly. On a full success, this takes a movement. On a partial success, this takes an action. On a failure, this takes all their movements and actions for that turn and ends their turn. Finally, we're at ducking, which I mentioned like at the very beginning of the video. And I'm just going to read this section straight from the rulebook because it's short, and I think it says it better than I could come up with to summarize in the script. Characters can drop to the floor or dive to the ground at any time, and this does not take a movement. It's a completely free thing they can do. We call this ducking with a capital D. Characters can capital D duck in response to danger, such as when they are aware they are about to be shot or an explosive like lands nearby, even if it is not their turn. Doing so puts them on the ground. This doesn't always literally mean laying flat on the ground. It could be any action that involves a sudden and total change in position to avoid danger, such as literally ducking to the ground, literally ducking behind a low wall, diving flat on the ground, leaping out of the way, whatever the situation like calls for. Regardless of what they're doing in the fiction, it mechanically counts as being quote-unquote on the ground with a capital O and a capital G, and thus requires a reflexes roll to quote-unquote stand up and recover from. That is about all I'm going to cover in this video. It wasn't a comprehensive explanation of everything about guns or about fighting in general in Eureka, but it is kind of like an overview. It's a quick start. I didn't cover capital R reactions, which are different from capital CA counterattacks. I didn't cover drowning, suffocation, poison, fall damage, chases, vehicles, vehicle attacks, chase obstacles, and a bunch of other really fun stuff that I'm probably scrolling over right now in the visuals of the video. So you'll have to read that in the rulebook yourself, and you should. Knowing these rules will always be advantageous. The rules aren't there to constrain your fun and tell you no. They're there to be used and to reward smart moves. They could save your investigator's life. And I'm going to end on that. You can find Eureka online by Googling Eureka Investigative Urban Fantasy and download it for free, payment is optional from itch.io. You can also get much more updated and much more regularly updated copies of Eureka from our Patreon, the Agency of Narrative Intrigue and Mystery Patreon, with a $5 subscription monthly. And whether you get it for free or you pay for it, we'd really appreciate you if you pay for it, obviously. We do need the money. But we want it to be played, and not everyone can afford it, and not everyone wants to pay for something before they know it's good. You can download it for free and then pay us after, or just download it for free and play it, tell your friends about it, like this video and share Eureka around, talk about it, play Eureka with your friends, and find us on social media and tell us about how Eureka playing went. We want to know that stuff because we like the game and we think it results in very, very cool stories. Thank you for watching.